All right, now for the really exciting stuff. A lot of what we do in real honest to goodness programming is event driven programming. So far, everything we've done, we ask the user a question, they type a response. We ask another question, they type a response, because we're doing it all by the command line. But normally the way programs work is we set up a form that has buttons and labels, and we put everything up for the user right up front, and then based on the action that they choose, if they click on the menu, or if they click on a button, or if they click on help, or if they click on, go to here or whatever, we perform the action out of all these possible actions based on what they did. So this is event-driven programming. We wait for the event to occur, and then after the event occurs, we associate an action with that event that's going to happen when that event occurs. I was teaching a small group of young students how to program some games, to make some games using this software called Game Maker. And I used this just came to me, this little example, but we were in there and I was trying to think of what might click with them, and there's a big fire alarm thing on the wall. And I said, well, if that fire alarm went off right now, that's the event that occurs. When the fire alarm goes off, then what is the action that we should perform with that event? And they talked about getting up and walking out, in a single file kind of line. And if it were an actual fire, it would be interesting to see how coordinated that all was. But we know the drill, right? We've had these trainings in different places. We set these meeting points, and we know our exits and everything, so that if that event occurs, everybody that's in that classroom, all 30 people that were in that classroom, should all stand up and perform their action based on the event. And that's the type of programming that we're going to be doing now that we have a good foundation with Java, to build more realistic programs that people would actually use. And so to do that, there's some different elements of this GUI programming, the graphical user interface programming. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a class called GUI Fun. Public static void main string args. You definitely should be doing this in your sleep by now. And then we're going to need some different elements to be able to or when I say elements, I mean classes. We're going to need some different classes or different libraries to be able to perform these functions. And so the first one we're going to look at is the javax.swing library. Okay, so these are some of the more new elements of Java. And when I say new, they're not brand new, but newer. And so the first element we're going to look at is the frame. And so the class, now I just did import all there. Now that's going to get a bunch of different classes that we're going to use. And the first one we're going to look at is to build a frame. Okay, so the frame is the class type, and then I got to give it a name, and so I can call it the home screen or something. And then that's going to be equal to a new JFrame. And then in the parentheses goes the dimensions of this frame. So I'm going to make the height 200, and I'm going to make the width, or other way around, I'm going to make the width 200 and the height 100, just to pull up a frame here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I'll save this. And then when we run this program, we're going to get an error. No suitable constructor found for the JFrame int. So I've just deftly paused it. You didn't even notice it. I deftly paused it, and I'm getting this error. No suitable constructor found for JFrame int. And this is what happens in this world. Unless I'm going crazy, you used to be able to do this frame this way, but now it's not allowing us to do that with the constructor. And so we can set the size. And so that's what I'll do. I'll just go into the home screen that I just created and set the size equal to 200 by 100. And then let's see if it's automatically visible or if I have to make it visible. Yeah, I didn't see it there, so I'm going to call one more method. So again, this is referring to the home screen object, which is an instance of the JFrame, and I'm going to set visible equal to true. And what we get is this little frame that's 200 by 100. Let's make that a 400 by 200. So you can see that this is the frame that we're talking about. And now I get this 400 by 200 frame on the screen. And this is kind of the first building block, right? This is the beginning of the form, is to have a frame that I can put objects onto, right? And so there's some different things that I can do with the frame. I believe what goes in here is a title. Let's try this. See if this works. Now one thing you'll notice is the program isn't ending. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, so now it's got a title on it. So what we can pass in is the title. And I just closed it, but it's not, notice the program's still running. I haven't finished it yet, and that's because the frame, when I click on it, its default action is to hide it, so that the frames are all open kind of behind the scenes, and when you click on it, it closes it, but doesn't close out of it because that would get rid of all the variables in it and all the settings and everything. The default action is to hide it, and so if we want to close it, then we have to tell it we want it to close, and usually we'll do that. Set visible is generally with these frames because the set visible is what paints it, and we'll usually have that be the last action associated with the object. And so I'm going to come in here in the middle and say, let's go to the home screen, and I'm going to set the default close operation. And the default close operation, I can use a little constant variable that's part of the home screen class called exit underscore on underscore close. And that has to be part of the home screen, otherwise it wouldn't know what exit on close means. But that's a constant that's associated with the JFrame object that I have called home screen. So home screen.exit on close. So now I'm saying when it closes, I want it to, or when I click on the X, I want it to close, and when I do that now, it'll exit out of the program. And so that's another option. Well, what else can we do when we set up a frame? Well, we can we set the title up here, but we can call the set title method. So after I set the size, but before I set the, well, I guess either one of those is fine. I'll go in here, but before I set it to visible, I'll want to set the title, and I can say, just built my first frame. And now the title that is associated with it comes in because of this line right here. And so this is the basic, building block. As we start to build these forms, you got to build a frame, and then we'll start to include certain things on this frame. Okay, so I'll maybe set the title equal to GUI fun, so that we can see that. And there it is. A lot of fun. There's GUI fun. And now we can start to add other elements to this frame to make it a form that we can use in a program to start doing stuff. And so we'll go ahead and continue on doing that in the next video. Spencer out.